son could be involved in. So M.C. Escher's father sent his son to a school of architecture and design in Haarlem, which is in the Netherlands. M.C. Escher's father had Escher when he was 55 years old. So he was an older gentleman when he had this youngest son. When Escher got to this Institute of Architecture and Design, he found out pretty soon that he really didn't like architecture. But there was a design artist and a printmaker named de Mesquita who he really latched on to. And de Mesquita saw in M.C. Escher some amazing promise. So taught him this craft of how to do printmaking. And that's where his printmaking skills come from, this one college professor, de Mesquita. Now, at this particular point, okay, what I'll tell you is that we have set out for you Escher prints that start from some of the earliest works of his to the very, very last work that he produced. I've also had Ginger set out for you things that you don't normally see in Escher works, things from different time periods, as well as the well-known impossible objects, the well-known math and polyhedral objects, and we'll also get to see Escher works in many different kinds of media. We'll also see some one-of-a-kind works as well too. So let's start over here with the first print here, the one with the faces, and you can see they're tessellating faces, right? They're shapes that leave no gaps and leave no gaps or no overlaps. This was designed in 1922 when Escher was still a student at the Institute for Architecture and Design. And so you can see from a young age, from an early age, he was already thinking about this idea of tiling and using different shapes to tile and investigating this kind of patterning, which he didn't call tessellations, but he did call it the division of the regular division of the plane. In this first print, and I should make known what is printmaking anyway. Printmaking is a particular kind of art form where you take a plate and you ink a plate, you put a piece of paper on top, press it down, and pull off an image. And with your plate, you can pull off many, many of the same kind of images, right? Okay, as long as the plate has the original fidelity and integrity. Okay, once you stop pulling off identical, reproductions, then you really stop printing from that particular plate. You call it a day, and then you say that this is a limited edition. Okay, and you could do this in a variety of medium. Maybe some of you have done linoleum tile cutting or linoleum plates. Yeah. Linoleum cutting and wood cutting are basically two of the same kind of print processes. What you do is you take a smooth surface, like a piece of linoleum or a piece of wood, smooth it than something like this. Escher would have taken something like pear wood that doesn't have these kind of striations in it. You take a knife or a chisel and you carve a groove into the piece of wood. Wherever you carve a groove into the piece of wood, that creates a space in the wood, right? A channel in the wood, so that when you ink the wood and you put a piece of paper on top and pull the paper off, every place where there's a channel is not going to be white on top of your final design, right? Okay? So that means when you're carving this design, any place where you carve, that's eventually going to be the white space. So when you take a look at this first print, which is a print created by a wood block, every space that you see that's white has been wood that's been carved away. So what if you see small, little, thin, black lines? That means he had to carve around really, really neatly around these black, these black pieces, these pieces of wood, and do it very, very carefully. Otherwise, the wood would chip, the wood would snap, the wood would break, and that kind of thing. So you have to be really, really careful with this. This piece is called 8 Faces, and you can see there's actually more than 8 faces. Where are the 8 faces? You can see and concentrate on the 8 faces over here, the 8 different faces that are in the corner, because he took this wood block and duplicated it 4 times on top of this sheet of paper. And so when you look at this with a pair of magnifiers, you will not see any seam, you won't see any overlaps, you won't see any gaps. It is really perfectly aligned and perfectly registered. And so you can see from a very, very early age, Escher had this incredible technique of printmaking. Now, if you look, here's another thing. In the lower right-hand corner, you'll see a annotation in the lower corner in pencil which says Eigendruck. Eigendruck means that the artist did everything himself, from the design to the cutting of the block to the inking, the printing. Okay, from start to finish, the artist did all of those things. Okay, so that's why Escher indicated that in the lower right-hand corner. Okay, the next piece, by contrast, is very, very different than the first one, right? Okay, in the first one, you can just see kind of like line black on white. Okay, you do see some, you kind of do see grays on top of the first picture, but the grays are an optical illusion. The grays are just created by black lines, thin or thicker black lines, posited either close together or farther apart. It's an optical illusion that you have grays there. You'll actually only have black on white. Whereas this definitely has grays in it. Why? Because this is a different kind of printing technique. This is a technique that's called lithography. Lithos meaning, anybody know? Lithos? Okay, stone. So this is a type of printing that actually uses a stone, uses sandstone. Sandstone that's polished really fine, and on top of the surface of the sandstone, what you do is you take a crayon-like substance, a waxy substance. It's called stearine. It's really like crayon. You draw your picture on top of the surface. Then you wash. You do what's called washing the stone. You put water over the stone, and water repels from the crayon, right? Because crayon is waxy, okay? The crayon is oil-based, okay? Whereas water, it repels the crayon. So the water sticks only to the stone surface. Then you ink the stone, okay? Ink is oil-based, so ink sticks to the crayon, right? And the ink is repelled by the water, okay? So ink sticks to the crayon part only. The paper goes on top, pressed, pulled off. That's the result, okay? So you're looking at really fine drawing to give you something that's going to be of this kind of quality. This is dated from February of 1930. It says in the upper part 230. So February 1930. By 1929, he has learned this technique of lithography, and I bet a lot of you have never seen like an M.C. Escher landscape before, right? Okay. M.C. Escher did lots of landscape earlier in his career, and he did lots of journeys throughout Italy. This is from one of the journeys. He maintained a sketchbook, and he was going to create a portfolio of lithographs like this that he was going to sell as a set, and that never materialized, but this did come out of it. It is a very famous print called Castrovalva. You can see in this print his technique of getting all of the shades of gray, from the whitest whites to the blackest blacks, and all the grays that are in between. You can also see with your magnifiers teeny type of details with the city and the tiny city in the back. And I want you to take a look also at the really fanciful flora and fauna over here as well too. The detail on this is really quite remarkable. For the lithographs, you realize that, you know, after you ink and, you know, take prints off of the stone, there's going to be a point at which the original source material is going to deteriorate, right? The original crayon material is going to deteriorate. And so you can't print after a certain point. After these prints start showing signs that they're not like the early ones, you've got to stop already. So the artist will take these prints and look at them and say, okay, we're cutting off right here, and these are the ones we're going to keep. and we're gonna now number all of these prints. So there's a numbering system over here at the bottom. This one says 47 out of 50. So that means that Escher only produced 50 of these lithographs, of which this is number 47. Okay. So are there always 50 produced? And the answer is no. You only keep as much as you have good ones for. Okay? So it could be 50, it could be a lot smaller set, it all depends. But we know that only 50 of these exist on the planet, okay, of which this is another. Okay. Here in this particular picture, okay, can you tell whether this is a lithograph or whether this is a woodblock print? What do you think?
Lithograph.
Lithograph. Yeah, because it has grays, right? Blacks, whites, and grays all in between. This is one of many self-portraits that M.C. Escher did of himself. The idea of doing a image inside a mirrored ball is not unique to M.C. Escher. This comes from a tradition that was done by Northern European artists from the Renaissance and on. So it's nothing new. One of the new things and innovative things, though, is the fact that he's actually holding the mirror ball, and that is actually his hand, and that's actually his hand, what he's seeing as well, too. I had asked George Escher if that scene inside the room really was what that room looked like, and George Escher said that, yeah, that's what our living room looked like in our apartment in Rome. So at this particular point, which is 1935, January of 1935, the Escher family is in Rome. In 1923, Escher gets married to the daughter of a Swiss industrialist. They have a son in 1926 and 1928, and they set up a domicile in Rome. At this particular point in 1935, George Escher said, one day, my brother and I came home. We were 9 and 7 years old at the time. And when we came home, we asked Father, can we get brown uniforms like our classmates? And remember, this is 1935 Italy. And so you can imagine what was going on there. Okay? M.C. Escher got quite alarmed and thought, you know what? Fascist Italy is not a good place to bring up boys, okay? I think we need to move out of this place. So they left Rome and they went to Switzerland for a short while, and then from Switzerland they went to Belgium. They stayed in Belgium, family stayed in Belgium until 1943, and then moved to Holland, moved to the Netherlands in 1943. As the Nazis were beginning to invade Belgium, they moved to Holland. And Escher lives the rest of his life all in the Netherlands. Another thing George Escher said was that Father's art studio was right above this one. So this is where we lived, and Father's studio was upstairs. And all during this time, he's traveling through Rome. He does a trip to the Alhambra in Granada, Spain. He takes a look at all of these amazing geometric tessellations. He gets jazzed up about what he could do about these tessellations and how he could study them and how he could classify them. And so that's all going on at this particular time as well. Okay? This is, and you'll notice, Escher's, in the corner, you'll notice Escher's cartouche, his logo. It's 3 squares with line segments put through each of the squares so that you could get the letters M, C, and E. Okay, so you'll see that in all the corners of these pieces of art. Looking at this particular piece, this is numbered 13 out of 30. So you see the run for this piece is only 30 pieces. Okay? This is from a set of only 30. This dates from March 1937, so at this particular point, the family is in Brussels already. They're in Belgium already. I had Ginger pull this piece for you because it shows one of his earliest examples of this impossible still life. So you have all of the books and objects that are on MC Escher's table, and the table goes right out and becomes part of the street scene, right outside. It's a woodblock print, okay? So what you're seeing here was originally carved out of a plank of wood. So the plank of wood has got to have been pretty big, right? It's got to be a pretty big piece of wood that he carved out of. And I want you to be sure to take a look at the tiniest little details, because there's teeny, tiny little bit in the very back, and there are small little leaves on the plants in the sill and that kind of thing. Remember, all of those things were carved out of this piece of wood now, okay? So it's really, really, really quite amazing. You'll also notice, you know, when you look at these prints, I should point out a couple things, and that is that when you see these prints in a book or a collection, they're all the same size, right? They're all reproduced exactly the same size. It's not till you see something like this that you finally see the original size of these pieces of art. Now you know now you see what Escher saw in producing a work like this. You know, it's the size of, this is the size that Escher was working with. This is what he produced with his own hands. As you go from right to left, you see how this particular print falls in the light and in the illumination. And you can also see the texture of the paper coming through as well, too. So this is an extraordinary way to examine all of these particular prints. Have you guys seen this one before? Yeah, I'm sure some of you have seen this before, right? It also exists in a blue version as well, too, a kind of rare blue version. Instead of black, they printed this in blue. When I talk to my students about this particular print, they kind of look at it and they say, "Oh, okay, that's morphing." Okay, but they don't realize that Escher was the first one to morph stuff. Okay, and here you have from the right to the left, the blackbirds being formed out of the white, and vice versa, the white being formed out of the black. But both sets of birds are being formed from the rectangular shapes and the rectangular fields from the bottom going up as well too. Looking at this, there's been some art critics that have said, "Oh, okay, here you have two birds. These birds are reflections of each other. The white bird is a reflection of the black bird." Okay, is that true? Okay, actually, I want you to take a close look at this. Is the white bird really a reflection of the black bird? Look at the shape, just the outline shapes of them. Look at them carefully. Can you see a difference between the white bird and the black bird, like this white bird and this black bird? Just the outline now, just the outline of the shape. They look like reflections of each other, right? The general shape looks like reflections. Can you see that they're not?
The bottom wing on the white birds is longer, the bottom and the top wing on the blackbirds is longer.
Okay, okay. And what else?
So it's not flipped that way.
Okay.
Their heads don't look alike on the black bird's head is kind of flat on the bottom.
And that one, okay. And then what else? They're not just right across from each other, okay? Okay. One more thing.
The black birds don't have eyes.
Small little eyes, that's small little eyes, yes. But there's one more thing. If you were to pull the blackbird and the white bird down so that they're at the same level, there's one big difference. See?
Bigger? Is that my imagination?
The tail is longer?
Say that again now. Say that again now.
The blackbird's tail is kind of swooping up, and the white is kind of swooping down.
Swooping down.
Yeah, the blackbird's tail is going up. The whitebird's tail is going down. They're not really just each other. So examine also this night and this thing that people call night and day. Okay? The white birds against the night sky, and the blackbirds against the daylight sky. In this particular lithograph, you see the lizards coming out of, well, basically what Escher explains is that here's my notebook, and then out of the notebook, one of the lizards was kind of bored, so he decided to crawl out and become three-dimensional, and he began to crawl up and up and up to the top of the geometric shape, then really looked around, got bored with 3 dimensions, and so decided to come right back down into 2 dimensions in this, and made a cycle. There have been a lot of people who have tried to speculate on what this rectangle is over here in the bottom corner with the words Job on it, and people have attached all kinds of metaphysical kind of connotations to this. And Escher said, please don't read too much into this, because Job is just a brand of Belgian cigarette papers. These are just the things on top of my desk, okay? By the way, do you guys know what this thin little trapezoid of wood is with the circle holes drilled into it is? Do you know what this is? What is that?
It's for drafting.
No. It looks like one of these drafts.
Wind chime?
No. Yeah, it's the cover of the metronome.
Oh,
Yeah.